Do you think with Ncuti it will be a similar situation as, he'll be playing? Because I've seen him in the Horrible Histories movie as
Yeah,
well.
I think he's in Barbie as well. I think
Yeah, the
I think
upcoming.
somebody brought up his like Wikipedia page or something and looked at his filmography, and it was on the bottom there, Barbie, currently filming. Um,
Yeah.
but it's obviously but the thing is, we don't know what happened behind the scenes, all of this stuff. So we know that the sets were taken down for like Jodie's TARDIS and stuff were
Well, yeah,
taken
I was
down.
talking about this yesterday, but
Yeah,
I was saying, oh, so maybe he won't be in the special, and it
yeah,
won't be a regeneration scene like clear. But then, sort of, Joe said to me, "Oh well, they can always green screen a TARDIS in or whatever because they've done that for other things, and it's not
mm.
it's not too like." I'm actually just imagining that it would be quite interesting to get sort of a war games type sort of thing
Yeah,
where
yeah. I
like
was
lots of
thinking
doctors
like
start to meet.
6 to 7 Doctor. It just starts off with him in a wig, and that's how his era begins, pretending to be the 13th Doctor.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I think I'm really interested about that element, to be honest, because we don't know what has happened behind the scenes. If he's known that he's the Doctor since February, what has happened in between that, between then and now? Like, there's been talk about like a read through of the first episode or something like that. I think that, well, I
Oh,
haven't seen the full article, but from what I've kind of regurgitated from Twitter, is that we've had that there's been sort of plans for the 60th and the scripts for the first couple of episodes that RTD has written, and there's a script reading he's known since February that he was the Doctor. And I imagine the auditions were taking place maybe earlier that year, earlier in the year, maybe even back, towards the end of last year. Um, and with all the the sets taken down, I think they were even taken down before Flux actually started. So in October,
oh yeah.
he won't be regenerating in the TARDIS that we've had before. But to be honest, we've had so many regenerations that have been the same in many respects.
Yeah.
It's like
In fact, it would be
yeah,
nice because I heard someone saying that Russell T Davies might just be like a reboot. And to be honest, I don't know if I'd mind something like that. It might just be
yeah.
quite nice to have like with the Ninth Doctor, very much there was no regeneration. It just sort of started off fresh with a new Doctor without sort of context of anything like that.
Yeah, I think that for me, I'm kind of a sucker for almost the canon of it, if that makes sense. I like to see the overlap slightly.
That's where Big Finish comes into play, eh, Dan?
Yeah, but I like to see that kind of what happens. Well, no, maybe not what happens, but how we get like just so that the continuity makes sense, so that we
You must
see
have loved Day of the Doctor.
so that we see one Doctor turn into the next one.
Yeah.
It kind of matches up nicely in my head. And then when you kind of got a full timeline in that respect as well.
Mm.
But for me, I also feel like a regeneration that takes place somewhere else. There's been something about like her drowning or something like that, that being the regeneration. So
I
I
don't
don't
know
know.
about that.
Don't take anything that you see on the
There's all
internet
sorts of
seriously.
rumours, aren't there?
Yeah, maybe that rumor that she's gonna have a cat in the TARDIS. That was
Okay.
my favorite rumor. Just there's gonna be a cat. We don't know why, but there's gonna be a cat in the TARDIS. There's gonna be a TARDIS cat, and that was this big story that was printed in the Sun, and it never happened.
Master.
It never happened. Um, but yeah, I can imagine there being. I'd like there to
Cat.
be something there. Yeah, that's it. He's gonna have a cat. Doesn't need a companion, a human companion. He's gonna have a cat.
That would be quite nice, I
That
think.
would be quite cool. Yes, I'd love to see just Russell T Davis doing things differently. To be fair, I'm quite happy with a reboot, but I don't think you can really reboot Doctor Who too much. If that makes sense. Like, do you know when Moffat was like, Series 10's a reboot, but it's not a reboot, though, is
I
it?
mean, that was interesting, and he called it the pilot, and it
Yeah,
was
he's like,
like, yeah, but this literally is just a continuation of Series 9,
you're
or
still
like
carrying on the 12th Doctor's arc. It's still
yeah.
going. So
Mm.
that's just kind of the way that it happened. I'd like to see one that is a reboot, but it's more like a reboot from Russell T Davis to Moffat. I think that was the only thing I would consider a proper reboot.
Or Moffat to Chibnall.
Oh yes, of course.
That felt very series 11 felt very fresh, and that's the feeling I'm getting from Doctor at the moment.
Mm. It's
Looking
positive
forward.
vibes for sure, isn't it?
Yeah,
Positive vibes. That's
but then to
that's
be
the
honest,
headline.
I feel like it won't take too long before people start, like, the general fans will start to maybe dislike.
Oh, it's already happened. I think well,
Well,
not
yeah,
general fans, but there's always like casting anyone as the Doctor because of the how I suppose the demographics of Doctors kind of work, if that makes sense. Like because of the fact that you're sitting, because it's not about the character and who they're playing. It quite literally resolves around, well, initially around the same person but differently cast. It's always about the appearance of the Doctor less than the acting ability or the, well, initially anyway, until they actually pop up on screen. You can't judge their acting ability of how they'd play the Doctor until that time or how they're written. So, and because of that, I think that it makes an interesting, it's something that never happens before in media, where you're quite literally judging people by their appearance and whether their physical presence make you feel like they're the Doctor or not. It's very bizarre. It never happens with anything else apart from Doctor Who because
it's
it's,
true. I think
yeah.
it's
But that's why you kind of get this kind of like identity politics and stuff brought into it, because there's not a
yeah,
lot else that you can do there. And for something to be different or to be a shock, you have to change things up, because otherwise you're just doing the same thing and eventually it will get stale, not just for the writers, but I think just for media in general. So it's not necessary. And woke is such like a broad term now. It means anything. It literally means we've cast a person of color. We've cast a person that isn't white is considered woke by some people. And I think that is like truly ridiculous. And I hope that it can all be proven wrong, but I know that there are some people that will never be swayed in any way. There's nothing he could, if even if he was the best performance, if RTD presented us with the best scripts he's ever written, they would still hate it because they're so clouded by his appearance and by the appearance of something they, I suppose, can't relate to. It's a puny term, but they can't relate to it. All of that kind of means that they then lose a complete disconnect, and because of that disconnect they lose the ability to be able to criticize it and to actually follow along in order to criticize it, because you have to actually understand something to criticize it, and they're just throwing their vague statements that could appeal to anything just so that it's echoed across the entire comment section. Anyway, I've gone on a proper tangent then.
no, no. I understand what you're saying. I think
Yeah.
whenever another Doctor's announced, it always shows all the sort of bigotry sort of comes out of the woodworks. I think is
Yeah,
the saying.
yeah,
So, like, obviously when Jodie Whittaker was announced, there was a huge sort of more attention, more people being made aware of the sexism in the fandom, and when Joe Martin was revealed as the Doctor, there was a
yeah. It
there's
has
always going to
been.
be that.
So I think that personally, from what I've seen on Twitter over the last day or two, I have not seen too much negative stuff. I've seen negative stuff, but it's never been taken seriously. It's always been like, who is this guy thinking this? And then if you look at the replies to that on Twitter, for example, he's being defended lots of times by lots of people. So it will kind of weed them out, I suppose. Or if anything, it will stop them sharing these opinions in order to kind of like belittle him or belittle people, I suppose.
Yeah, I think yesterday at the BAFTAs, Ncuti in an interview was talking about the representation, and I think that's probably the most important aspect of it.
Mm.
And I know for a fact that Rusty Davies will deal with that, sensitively and
I
properly.
think he would
Does.
over Chibnall ever could. I think that RTD is subtle enough to do that for sure.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know about it being subtle. Again, I can't talk too much about.
Maybe not subtle, but is because I mean, if you look at some of his storylines, obviously they weren't subtle, but I think that he's a skillful enough writer for that to have depth and for it to have meaning. Other than other writers, I shouldn't probably just throw Chibnall under the bus for no reason, but for just other writers to you know, a weaker writer wouldn't be able to actually add that depth and just have this surface level of, you know, addressing the color of his skin or something like that, you know.